guys, welcome back to another episode of Comics the Gathering. It's your host Jesse as always, and I'm delivering on a promise today. I said I'd make this deck tech. I actually have recorded this deck tech once already, but I kind of recorded the entire thing without my microphone on. Yeah, so this is take two, and it is happening about a week and a half later than I wanted it to happen. I've just kind of been in a funk lately. There's a lot going on at a personal level, and I haven't been recording. And I should be recording because it makes me feel productive, but it's just felt heavy, and I haven't. And I'm sorry, more to myself that I haven't been making myself record. So thank you guys for your patience. But without further ado, here's that deck tech. Today we're doing Rin and Seri, the Inseparable. So this is the buy a box promo for Core Set 2021. It is effectively urges you to play both dogs and cats. Because for 4 mana you get a 4/4 that says whenever you cast a dog spell, create a 1/1 green cat creature token. And then whenever you cast a cat spell, create a 1/1 white dog creature token. It also lets you pay red, green, white, and tap Rin and Seri the Inseparable to deal damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control. You gain life equal to the number of cats you control. So you get to ping things down, gain a bunch of life, and we're playing off that idea. Now, one of the things I will tell you up front. Dogs are a new errata. Anything that was hound is previously dog, and things with, going forward will be given the dog creature type instead of hound. However, this does not include wolves or jackals. Those are their own sub-themes. So they do not make it anywhere into the deck because they are not being errated. It's only hound. That being said, there's not too many good dogs in Magic right now. It's a new thing. I think they'll get more support, but it'll be one of those wait and see how it goes things. But that being said, we do have plenty of cats that are going to in turn make us dog tokens. So we're going that route for now, and then a couple other little sneaky things I had to do to kind of get this deck to work. So I'm going to go through it. We're going to start in with the creatures, and that's going to kind of tell us the direction that we're going. These are just in alphabetical order, so you'll if you click the link to the deck tech down below, to the tapped out link, you can check it. You can follow along there if you want to open it in a new tab. First cat we're playing is Alms Collector, a 4 mana 3/4 with flash. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that opponent each draw a card. Being in the color scheme that you're in, you do have access to some good draw, but this is a way to stop those blue players and some of the black players from going off and drawing a ton of cards in a single turn. So this is a nice way to hedge yourself against the player who's trying to Blue Sun Zenith themselves into first place or whatever that may be. There's also a lot of decks floating around now that are trying to just mill or draw their own deck and then win off of like a Thassa's Oracle or a Lab Maniac or a Jace. So this is one of the other ways you can help prevent that. Now there is one non-cat or dog that we are playing. And there's a flavor reason for this, but also a functionality reason for this. Flavor-wise, if you have all these cats and dogs, somebody needs to feed them. Somebody has to take care of them. So this is kind of like the analog for you in the deck. You know, you get to come in, you get to help take care of all these animals. So that being said, you get to be Beast Whisperer. Because also, casting creature spells and drawing cards seems really good. especially in a deck that is primarily focused on this idea. So now if you have Rin and Seri and your self-analog of Beast Whisperer out, each time you cast a cat or dog, you're going to get a token, the creature itself, and you're going to draw a card. It seems really good. Next we have a cat to help keep growing our army, to apply pressure to our opponents. That is Burmaz, King of Orarescos. For 1 white, you get a 3/4 with Vigilance. Whenever he attacks, you get to put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with Vigilance onto the battlefield, and it's attacking. And whenever Burmaz blocks a creature, you put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with Vigilance onto the battlefield that is blocking that creature. So Burmaz never goes anywhere alone, and more importantly, those tokens stick around as well. Unless, of course, they can get blocked or whatever, but you're not going to swing into that. So nice early game aggressive threat to start producing tokens. He actually curves out really nicely where, you know, turn 3 you can drop Burmaz, turn 4 Rin and Seri on curve, and then, you know, you start amassing your army between the two of them really nicely. Now, because dogs are an underdeveloped tribe, we needed some cards to help shade in that area. There are a couple dogs in the deck, but we needed some shade in. Something that bridged the gap. Like in Jurassic Park, when they used the amphibian DNA to fill in the dino DNA. And that totally doesn't lead to later problems, but we're doing the same thing. And that is, we're playing Chameleon Colossus, and we have several shapeshifters with the changeling ability in here. Not a ton of them. You could actually build this deck to just be a changeling deck, and I genuinely think it would probably be the most efficient way to play Rin and Seri, but we're trying to go for a little bit of flavor here, and with the mostly cat engine we have, we do get a nice bit of synergy as well. If you already own the Arabo Roar of the World deck, this is an easy deck conversion, by the way. You don't have to pick up a ton if you already own the cat precon. Also, if you bought the OMG Kitties secret layer, that all slots in nicely here as well. But Chameleon Colossus is 2 green for a 4/4 changeling, so it is all creature types at all times, so it is both a cat and a dog. And that is important to note because Rin and Seri sees both creature types when you cast it. So you will get both a 1/1 cat and a 1/1 dog off of Rin and Seri when you play any of your changelings. This one also happens to come with protection from black, and you can pay 2 green. Chameleon Colossus gets +X till end of turn, where X is its power. Now, right out the gate, that's just pay 4, give him +4/+4. However, we have several cat lords and several dog lords that will be pumping him up. So because of that, you're going to see that ability comes into play a lot more. Next, we have one of our new Core Set 2021 cats. I genuinely love this card because it encapsulates what assholes cats can be. So next we have probably one of my favorite cards from M21. This is a card that illustrates how kind of dickish cats can be. And that is Feline Sovereign. This is a 2 and a green for a 2/3 cat. Other cats you can control get +1/+1 and have protection from dogs. So already it's looking like Wizards might be moving in a visionary future where these two tribes are at war, and I think that would be fun flavor-wise because cats versus dogs has always been a thing. But that being said, it also has, whenever 1 or more cats you control would deal combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And this illustrates Cat's penchant for knocking things off tables. You can see this in the art, and you can see this here. So, I like that flavor win, and I like what it does for the deck. Now, then we have another cat inclusion that really, really, there's all these Leonins that qualify as cats, but they don't feel like cats. They feel more like furries, but they're really good, so we got to play them in the deck until Wizards maybe changes them to a Leonin type at some point, and then cats can just be cats. But until then, we have Gizelle Goldman, brother of Johnny Goldman. He is 4 mana for a 4/4 first strike, and you can pay 3 white. Attacking creatures you can control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Sounds like the perfect card for a go wide token deck. Just saying. Obviously, we want trample in there too, because that makes it really hard to block. But that's the starting basis. The starting basis. You'll see we got a lot more ways to win the game. Next, we have a nice little Lord in Kahira the Orphan Guard, 3/2 cat. We're not playing this as a companion. It's just hanging out in the main deck. Vigilance, and then each other creature you control that's a cat, and then a bunch of creature types that don't matter get +1/+1 and has vigilance. Because it's cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast, and not and. These don't stack on your changeling, by the way. Your changelings will just see that it needs to fill out one of those. It will get +1/+1 in vigilance. It doesn't get an additional +1/+1 for each other creature type. It would be nice if it did, but it doesn't. It's not how it works. It's not how it's worded. Then we have King of the Pride. Other cats you control get +2/+1, while also being a 2/1 and costing you 2 and a white. Nice little callback to Savannah Lions here, and just great Lord for what our team is. You'll notice that the dog tokens are primarily what we're producing to go wide, whereas we have a bunch of Lords that pump our cats up so our cats go really tall. So you will see that develop out further as we go into the list. Then we have a Leonin War Leader. For 2 white, it's a 4/4. Whenever Leonin War Leader attacks, you create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink that are tapped and attacking. So again, more cat token production, keeping the train going. Then we have Mirari, Weatherlight Duelist for 1 green/white. It's a 3/2 first strike. Whenever Mirari Weatherlight Duelist attacks, each opponent can't block with more than 1 creature this combat. And as long as Mirari Weatherlight Duelist is tapped, no more than 1 creature can attack you each combat. So this is a nice little way to reward yourself for being an aggressive attacking deck that goes wide, because it makes it so your opponents really don't have good blocks, and on top of that, you can make sure that they can't crack back and kill you so long as you can protect Mirari. Next we have our other changeling that kind of, again, bridges the gap, but if you're in any tribal deck that's in white, I feel you have to include it because it's just so powerful. And that's Mirror Entity. For 2 and a white, you get a 1/1 changeling that has pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power, toughness, XX, and gain all creature types. So suddenly all your dogs are also cats, and all your cats are also dogs. And suddenly all your boosts that only apply to cats are now also affecting your dog tokens. And anything you had only for dogs is now also affecting your cats. And also, Rin and Seri's activated ability becomes absolutely bonkers. Even if you just beat this at X = 1, you can close the game out just off the activated ability if you're wide enough. Really, really good card here. Lots of utility in the deck, and feel it is a necessary auto-include for this deck. Next we have Orarescos Explorer. This is a 2 mana 2/2. When Orarescos Explorer enters the battlefield, search your library for up to X playing cards, where X is the number of players
who control more lands than you, reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is twofold. This is a way to go and make sure that you're fixing your mana because you're able to get plains cards. So as long as you're playing dual-typed land, you can search up other colors you need. And these don't have to be shock lands if those are too expensive for you. You also have access to like the BFZ battle lands that come into play untapped so long as you have 2 or more basics. Or there's also the cycling lands from Amonkhet. Those are dual typed as well. Granted, they do come into play tapped, but this is a way to search them up. Then we have the good boy, the best boy, Octavius Gerhardt IV himself, pack leader. For 2 mana, you get a 2/2 dog. Other dogs you control get +1/+1. And whenever pack leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn to dogs you control. So right out the gate, we got an efficient 2 mana dog lord that also rewards you for attacking by making it so your dogs can't be damaged. It's pseudo indestructibility. But remember that mirror entity? Yeah. That's busted. Suddenly, swing with your whole team. They can't be damaged. You got Mirari Weatherlight Duelist in there. Only one of your opponent's creatures can block. It gets really bonkers the more you start to stack all these buffs on top of each other. Next we have a cat who, instead of being a lord, is kind of like the LeBron of the deck, where he just, everybody else just makes him greater. He is a 2 and a green for a 2/2. This is Pride Sovereign. So you get, he gets +1/+1 for each other cat you control. So for each other cat you got hanging around, he's better. He goes tall. However, you can pay a white, tap him, and exert him. So that way he will not untap during your next untap step to create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So if you need to grow your board and just go wide, you can recruit other players to the team because look, you got LeBron. But when it comes down to it, he's going to be huge. He's going to go wide, or he's not going to go wide. He's going to want to hog the bottom himself, like LeBron, and he's going to get real tall and real big, and you're just going to have to contend with this all-star big player coming in on your opponents. So there's that, and then all the little guys come in behind him and play distractions. Next we have, sorry, that was horrible basketball analogies. Next we have Prowling Circle. Very, very crucial card for this deck. Also climbing in price. If you're going to be playing green and you're playing Serpapard, I would invest in him soon. He keeps creeping up. This is one of those sleeper cards that just keeps going up. He's, as of recording, Tapped Out is saying that the TCGPlayer average is $5.21, but when I looked him up the other day, he was $6, almost $7. So I would pick up your copies of this card now before he becomes a $15, $20 card. So yeah, I don't know when they're reprinting this card. He's set up to where he can be reprinted anywhere. His typing isn't crazy. He doesn't have a unique Amonkhet name, but it would need to be he very easily could have been an Ikoria. He's a cat snake. He's a weird cat, which was one of the Ikoria things, but they didn't put him in there, so I don't know where he'll show up next. But for 3 mana, you get a 4/3. That's aggressive, and then he can't be countered, and then suddenly creature spells you control can't be countered. Seems like you're going to be sticking your cats and your dogs, regardless of what the blue player at the table is doing. So one of the ways you kind of want to win in a deck that's going wide with a bunch of little dudes in Commander, because there's not going to be times when you can actually attack in unless you're pumping your team. However, there is an alternate strategy if you also have access to red, and that's to play Perforous God of the Forge. One of the, again, this is flavor-wise not a very strong flavor pick, but competitive-wise and for what this deck is doing, this card is very necessary. You're rarely ever going to actually have enough devotion to turn Perforos into a creature, but that's okay. Every creature entering the battlefield dealing 2 damage to each opponent, it's really good. Not to mention, you can also use the activated ability, which is to pay 2 and a red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Another way to just get in more damage on your opponent. And then we have Qasali Pride Mage, a 2-mana 2/2 with Exalted. Not that that's really ever going to come up very often, but more importantly, you can pay 1, sacrifice the Pride Mage, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So again, nice, efficient artifact or enchantment removal. And most importantly, he's going to leave behind the dog if you have Rin and Seri out when you cast him. So for 3 mana, make a 1/1 and destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's actually not a bad rate. Then we have Qasali Slingers, 4 and a green for a 3/5 with Reach, so a nice little way to block flyers. And whenever Slingers or another cat enter the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. This is the equivalent of having an Aura Shards in this deck. You don't need to run Aura Shards because almost every spell that you play that's a creature is going to make it's either going to be a cat that makes a dog token and thus you get the trigger, or you're going to cast a dog and it's going to make a cat token and then you're going to get the trigger. Or you're going to cast the Changeling and you're going to get 2 triggers. So this will just be the bane of your opponent's deck. They will not be able to have proper artifact and enchantment positions for their deck, especially mana rocks or problematic ones that let them do big mana dumb things, because you're just going to blow them all up. You're just going to go, oh, no, that's dead. Oh, no, that's dead. Oh, no, that's dead. And suddenly, they're just going to be behind, and your board's going to be massive. So this is a fantastic inclusion for the deck. Another card to maybe cast into having Qasali Slingers out, if you do have a bunch of enchantments that you need to remove, is Regal Cargo. For 5 mana, you get a 3/3 that says other cats you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. When Regal Cargo enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So right there, off of just Regal Cargo, if you have Rin and Seri out, you're going to get a 1/1 dog, 2 1/1 cats, and a 3/3 cat lord that's also going to give all your cats lifelink. Really, really good right there. Not to mention, if you have Qasali Slingers out, that's 3 artifact and enchantment removals right there. So, really, really good. Next we have another good boy. Maybe the best boy. And that is Selfless Savior. He has a single white mana for a 1/1. You can sacrifice Selfless Savior. Another target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Meaning this good boy gives up his life for another person. And maybe the greatest sacrifice you can make is to lay down your life for another. And this little good boy will happily do it with his big derpy smile. And then also, I just gotta say, this flavor text makes me straight up cry. Like, this is so, like, they put this goofy dog on here, but this flavor text hits you right in the feels, man. She raised him from an orphan pup and gave him a life of love. With his last act, he thanked her. My God, Wizards, what are you doing to me? So I'm going to move on before I start sobbing over this fictional dog. Temur Sabertooth, 4 mana, 4/3 cat. This is where we start to get into combo area. So this has, you can pay 1 and a green. You may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So you're able to have a way to recast your cats to, with Rin and Seri, make more dog tokens. And this says return another creature. You can pick up your maybe your you can pick up your changelings, and you have a way to maybe get double triggers, and it's also a solid way to just have a threat that you can protect. Like it's a 4/3. It's nothing to scoff at. It will get there eventually, and it's going to be something that your opponent has to find a way to interact with it. Also, you can just, if you have the mana to do it, pick a bunch of things up in response to a board wipe, and protect, you know, the integrity of your board. You can just pick up all your actual creature spells, let the tokens get hit by the wrath, and then Temur Sabertooth's indestructible, he'll still be there. Recast everything, and then boom. One of the ways to turn this into a dumb combo is in the next card, though. This is our final changeling, and he's in here because of his combo potential, because of how cheap he is. This is Universal Automaton. For a single generic mana, you get a 1/1 changeling. Flavor-wise, doesn't fit with the deck. Effect-wise, combo-wise, we're about to do some shenanigans. Let's say you have a ton of mana, and you're kind of down to like the nitty-gritty on card advantage. You can't really draw cards. How do you close out this game? You have Rin and Seri, you have Temur Sabertooth, and your top deck is Universal Automaton. Pay 1 mana, play Automaton, make a dog and a cat token. Okay? Pay 2 mana, pick the Automaton back up, cast it again, make 2 more tokens. Keep doing this for all of your mana until you get to a point where you're like, okay, I have enough. Activate Rin and Seri, deal a bunch of damage to you, gain a bunch of life. Seems really good. So there's that. Not to mention, we have a final piece of the puzzle we haven't revealed yet. And that is a cat that is called Whitemane Lion. For 2 mana, you get a 2/2 with Flash. When Whitemane Lion enters the battlefield, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. Now, you can bounce back Universal Automaton here, but that would be incorrect. Whitemane Lion just wants to bounce itself back. And you can do this during your opponent's end step before your turn. You've held up a bunch of mana. You're a Naya deck. Your opponents can't figure out why. Suddenly, Whitemane Lion flashes in, makes a dog token, and then bounces itself back to your hand. And you do this with your open mana 3 or 4 times during your opponent's end step. Suddenly, your opponent's going, huh, that's a problem, because you just made 4 dogs in their end step. And you get to keep doing this every turn. It's really good. They have to have a counterspell to interact with it, but you have answers to that with like Prowling Circle. So, this deck is all put together in a way that when you start stacking all these puzzle pieces together, it can start to get really out of hand despite not being, you know, a tier 1 deck. Now, we are a go wide deck. So we do have some weaknesses, and that one of those is wraths. We will answer the wrath problem for the most part in the instance category, which we are going into next. Now this first one does not help protect that, but it is an all-purpose removal spell that I feel like you should be playing if you're in green, and that is Beast Within. Any problem card, get rid of it, give your opponent a 3/3 green beast creature token. Sure, that's fine. Cool. First way to protect our team, Boros Charm. There is a mode on here. For 2 mana, you can either deal 4 damage to target player or planeswalker, target creature gains double strike until end of turn, or, most importantly, permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So, one way for 2 mana to protect your whole board. No problems, no muss, no fuss. Just a good way to blanket protect everything. Out of the core set this year, we got a nice little way to help out our friends, and that is Flawless Maneuver. A card that has been steadily climbing after being downplayed. People said it was good, but everybody was focused on Fierce Guardianship, and now this card's ticking up, and it's barely been any time. It's 2 and a white, but if you control your commander, you may cast it for free. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Okay, it's a way to protect against wrath. We're playing Beast Within, but we're also in the colors where we can play its counterpart. So we're playing Generous Gift, which is Beast Within, but instead of a 3/3 green beast, they get a 3/3 green elephant. Okay, seems good. Elephants for days. Then we're in green, and we need efficient ways to protect our large board. Well, that sounds like a job for a hero with a heroic intervention. Heroic intervention is going to be a nice little way for 2 mana, permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. They will not be taking down your team this turn. You will make sure that you have the protection. Now, we do want some removal. Your opponent occasionally plays creatures that are problematic. Sometimes it's just a big creature that you can't get through without losing a key piece in combat. So, Path to Exile. Exile target creature and your opponent gets a basic land. Sure. Swords to Plowshares. Do the same thing. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Not to mention a versatile spell that when you might die, you can exile one of your own creatures to gain the life needed to stay in the game. Back into the realm of protection, we have Unbreakable Formation. For 3 mana, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. However, with its addendum, if you cast this spell during your main phase, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain vigilance until end of turn. So that is always a fantastic, fantastic way to protect yourself. Finally, we have Veil of Summer. You're in green. Counter spells and removal spells are going to be a thing from blue or black players. This is just a great way to protect yourself. Sorcery-wise, we have a lot of ramp. We have Cultivate, which fortunately just got a reprint. Before it was sitting at like, $1.20, $1.50. It's down to 50 cents. So a great little easy, cheap pickup right now. Or if you're just cracking Corset 2021, you might just open. It is an uncommon in there. We also have Farseek. For 2 mana, you get to get anything that isn't a forest. Again, dual type land, like with Orarescos Explorer, makes this shine even better. We have Kodama's Reach, which is basically Cultivate 2. Also just reprinted in the Commander decks. Not all of them, but some of them. Nature's Lore, get a forest card. Again, dual type lands are most optimal. Rampant Growth. And then we move into the realm of card draw. Now, we don't particularly have a ton of card draw in here, but some of the card draw we have is of pristine quality. Shamanic Revelation for 3 green. Draw a card for each creature you control. With Ferocious, you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So, pump the team, gain some life, but more importantly, draw a ton of cards. Then we have Titanic Ultimatum. This is one of our spells that can let us win when we amass a large board. For 7 mana, all colored pips of red, green, white, until end of turn, creatures you control get +5/+5, gain first strike, lifelink, and trample. It's just a great way to close out the game. You've gone wide. Your opponents don't have solid blocks, but then you just pump everything and you make sure it all gets through. Not to mention giving you a huge lifelink gain to survive a possible crackback if you don't kill everyone. The other way we have to win is Triumph of the Hordes. I know a lot of people in Go Wide decks end up doing this, but it's just really efficient. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, gain trample, and infect for 4 mana is a great way to win the game. especially when you're just going super wide. You have more tokens than your opponents could ever block. Well, suddenly you can just infect people out of the game, and there's nothing they can do. Also, this is very akin to like the real world problem of your pets getting rabies. So there you go. There's some flavor win for you. And finally, our last sorcery is Vandal Blast. Not a very flavorful card here, but you do need every efficient way to handle enchantments and artifacts, I think, in this format. Maybe even more so than creatures sometimes. I feel more problematic enchantments and artifacts are run in Commander than, problematic creatures. Also, it's more likely that if you scale to be more the guy who controls the artifacts and enchantments at the table, generally the people who have flexible removal will be forced to maybe suboptimally use that flexible removal on creatures. Just hopefully not yours. Moving on to enchantments. Rin and Seri make tokens. We have a couple other cards that make tokens, but they're the main focus of the deck. So, we want to make that even better, even more efficient. Now, you can put Doubling Season in the deck. I did not include it because of its price point. If you already own one, great, go for it. I'm sure you can find a slot. That being said, some more budget alternatives, because these cards keep going up in price too. They're, again, not very budget anymore. I was fortunate enough to pick up a copy of this card when it was out during Amonkhet being fresh, and you could get it for like, I think I paid $6 for mine. Anointed Procession is now floating at $28. If an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice as many of those tokens instead. We also have its counterpart in here. We'll get to that in a minute. So obviously, you have an Anointed Procession. Rin and Seri's out. You cast, a cat. Make 2 dogs. Okay, seems good. It seems a way more efficient at growing your board. Another thing we can do with a very large board is win the game. But how do we get all of our little tokens big enough? Well, we have Beastmaster Ascension for that. So that's going to read a 3-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension. As long as Beastmaster Ascension has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. It's also still fairly cheap right now. It gets printed fairly recent. It's been printed fairly recently and gets printed regularly enough that the price stays in check. That being said, this says whenever a creature. So if you attack with 7 creatures at once, they all add a counter. So suddenly you just wait to play this until you have the board that can swing and instantly trigger this ability. So that's something you're going to want to keep in mind. Then we have Cathar's Crusade, another card that when it came out was not very expensive, but still steadily is climbing. It's 5 mana. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. You're going wide with tokens. Well, you're going to want Cathar's Crusade to pump up those tokens, because now every time you cast a creature and it makes a token with it, you're going to be getting a +2/+2 on effectively your whole team. It's really good. And it stays. Like, it doesn't go until end of turn, or if the enchantment's removed, they have to actually remove the creature to remove the buff. So this is very powerful. Another way to exert power in this deck is to have haste. Being able to act the minute you come into play. So Fires of Yavimaya is fantastic here. Creatures you control have haste for 3 mana? Sure. It also has the little sacrifice ability. You can pump something. Not great. You could also play a Fervor as well. It's 2 in a red, and it does the same thing, but it doesn't have the sacrifice ability. If you have that and not a Fires of Yavimaya, that works too. It's basically the same thing. Or if you can find room, you could double it up. So that way you're just more consistent. So then we got to talk about animal abuse, because the implications of having this card in the deck are not good. We here do not support any form of animal abuse. I love my pets, and anyone who abuses animals is a terrible person and needs to die in a hole. That being said, Goblin Bombardment is a really good card in this deck. You can just make it rain cats and dogs on your opponent. So, you know, at least the cats hopefully land on their feet. But your opponent's life total will not. You'll be able to just, you know, close out games, sack off all your tokens, ping down your opponents, and just end things rather efficiently. We're going wide, so a Gaia's Cradle would be nice, but they're like $475 now because they're on the reserve list, and that's weird and horrible. And so we're playing Growing Rights of Itlimoc, because it is a significantly much cheaper version of that card. You do have to jump through some extra hoops. It's a 3-mana legendary enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest onto the bottom. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, you transform the Growing Rights, and it flips over into Itlimoc, Cradle of the Sun, which can either tap for a green or tap to add green to your mana pool for each creature you control, which is the exact words of Gaia's Cradle, except if you don't have creatures, Gaia's Cradle actually can't tap for mana. So they did put that. There we go. So yeah, Growing Rights is a fantastic inclusion in the deck. Next we have a way that we're closing out the game, doubling down on our Perforous plan, and that's to play Impact Tremors. Common from Dragons of Tarkir that just casually costs $2 now. But whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, we're making tons of tokens, especially if you can stack this up with Perforos and the Impact Tremors. This can go places. You can also, if you can find the room, you could fit Warstorm Surge into this deck. It's not going to be as good as it is in some other decks, but it is, again, another way to start pushing that damage through without needing to attack. Then we have the card that pumps your team and doubles your mana, Mirari's Wake. I don't know what Wizards was thinking when they made this card, but for 3 green-white, creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So that seems really good. And then Parallel Lives kind of speaks for itself. It's in the same price point as Anointed Procession, and it's the same effect, but in green. So anytime you produce a creature token, you get to make 2. And then finally, a lot of the pump effects of the format, they have an issue where they only, you know, help out. They're either blanket effects that pump your whole team, or they're tribal. And so when they're tribal, they have this issue of you're playing Rin and Seri, and you're in a split tribe. It's a dual support. You have cats and dogs. You're not getting your full boost, so you can't, you know, you don't get as much out of it in here as you would in other decks. But I did find this card. It actually got reprinted recently, and I think it fits really nicely in here, and that's Shared Animosity. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So when you go wide, this is just another way to really help out your team. Finally, getting into artifacts, we're playing all of the signets, Arcane, Boros, Gruul, and Celestia. So you have all of those to help fix your mana, along with the ever-present Soul Ring, because this is Commander after all. But a couple cards that help out that aren't those are Herald's Horn is a nice addition. Whenever it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. We're also playing a Life Crafter's Bestiary. For 3 mana, you get an artifact that says at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay an additional green. If you do, draw a card. So again, a nice little consistent card draw engine in a deck that maybe doesn't have the most card draw it could have, but it plays off the themes of the deck. Lightning Greaves is just a great way to give haste and shroud to your key pieces. So maybe you need Rin and Seri to be able to tap the turn it comes into play, and you don't want your opponent to be able to remove it on their turn, or maybe one of your other creatures needs to attack the turn it comes down. This is a great way to do that. Plus, Dogs Wearing Shoes is fantastic. I mean, look at this. Look at this. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's adorable. He's forgotten how to walk. Who doesn't love that? We're going to have to revisit animal cruelty for a second, though, after seeing that beloved clip. Again, do not condone it, but it works really well in the deck. And these are fictional animals, so skull clamping them is a thing you can do. You're making 1/1 tokens. I mean, it is skull clamp. We know how Magic works. Drawing cards is good, and this is probably one of the best card draw engines you could run in here with what you're doing. So, sorry, little puppy, but for science, you must be used for research. And then finally, doubling down on the dogs and shoes thing, Swiftfoot Boots. It just fits nicely, and, again, it's another way to protect your key pieces, give them haste when you need haste, and fully helps out the deck. As for the lands, like I said, dual-typed lands work really nice here because of some of the ramp pieces we're using. Other than that, probably Unclaimed Territory is relevant. However, again, it only fits with half of your theme, but with you not really being able to cast many dogs, putting this on cat is perfectly fine. Other than that, there's not really anything else here other than one land. Gavany Township. Probably the single most important land you could play in this deck. It's taps for colorless, and then you can pay 2 green and white, tap, and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. You're going wide. This affects the whole team. It works really nicely. So again, you can make your mana base however it works for you. But I would definitely say you need to have a Gavany Township in there, just for the strategy and for what you're trying to do. And then also, I definitely also recommend Path of Ancestry, because all your creatures except for 1 are going to, or two are going to line up with the creature type of your commander, because it is both a cat and a dog on Rin and Seri. So you will always be able to scry and have proper color fixing. So again, fantastic card. But that's going to conclude the deck tech. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.